He was the smartest chimp they had ever seen. He learned 500 signs, but he was obsessed with one door, a locked door at the end of the hall.
Kael,
He kept
can you
singing
tell me
cold
what you
cry
see
help.
in the picture?
The researchers assured him it was just a storage freezer, but the chimp knew they were lying. What was really behind the locked door? Watch till the end to find out what happened. Kael was not just a chimpanzee. He was a linguistic prodigy, a silent, fur-covered Shakespeare. Here at the Sanctuary Project, nestled deep in the Oregon wilderness, we had achieved the impossible. Under the meticulous, driven direction of Dr. Aris Thorne, Kael had acquired a vocabulary of over 500 signs. He didn't just sign for bananas or play. He signed for tomorrow, remember, and dream. His intelligence was a bright, piercing light. My name is Dr. Lena Hansen, and I was his primary linguist, his teacher, and, I believed, his closest friend. Our sessions were the stuff of academic legend. He would sit, his deep, molasses-brown eyes fixed on my hands, not just mimicking, but conversing. He would ask about the rain. He would sing funny when I tripped, and sad when he saw a bird hit the window. He was, in every meaningful way, a person. But I, in my human arrogance, believed I was the one teaching him. I was wrong. Kael had one final, terrible lesson to teach me. The Sanctuary Project was, on the surface, a paradise. It was Dr. Thorne's magnum opus, a sprawling, multi-million-dollar facility designed to be the perfect bridge between the wild and the human world. We weren't a zoo. We were an institution of interspecies communication. The enclosures were vast, open-air forests under a biodome, the nutrition meticulously managed, the enrichment protocols rigorous. Aris Thorne himself was a giant in the field, a man whose ambition was matched only by his intellect. He saw Kael as the key to everything, the living proof of his theories. "We are not just teaching him, Lena," he would say, his eyes gleaming with a possessive fire. "We are listening to the very soul of the primate world." He was a man who demanded results, who saw emotion as a variable to be managed, not a force to be respected. And his facility, so full of light and air, held one very dark, very cold corner. It began on a Tuesday. It was subtle at first. Kael, usually so engaged, seemed distracted. He would pause mid-session, his head cocked, staring past my shoulder, down the long, sterile white corridor that led away from his habitat. His gaze fixed on one thing, the final door. It was a heavy, white steel door, unremarkable save for the humming keypad lock beside it. It was the only place in the facility Kael was not allowed to see. His curiosity, once a playful thing, began to curdle into a deep, unsettling anxiety. He would walk to the edge of his enclosure, his knuckles pressed against the reinforced glass, and just stare at it. He stopped asking for play. He stopped singing funny. His entire, brilliant mind, a mind that could map out complex social dynamics, was now reduced to a singular, obsessive focus on that one locked door. "What is it, Kael?" I signed to him one afternoon, kneeling by the glass. "What do you see?" Kael turned, his eyes wide, his movements suddenly frantic, almost desperate. He brought his small, chapped hand to his chest and made the sign for cold. He shivered, an exaggerated, theatrical gesture to make sure I understood. Cold. Then, he brought his fist to his eye and dragged it down his cheek. Cry. The sign for tears, for sadness. And finally, he clasped his hands together, a gesture we had taught him as a universal sign for help. He repeated the sequence, over and over, his knuckles rapping the glass, his gaze locked on the door. Cold. Cry. Help. A chill, entirely separate from the room's air conditioning, ran down my spine. I tried to reassure him, signing friends and safety. He ignored me. He just stared at the door, signing help. Cold. Cry. Help. I brought it to Aris Thorne immediately. He was in his office, a sterile glass box overlooking the main habitat, charts and data splayed across his desk. Aris, Kael is fixated on the south wing door. He's signing cold and helping. He's deeply agitated. What is back there? Aris didn't look up, his pen still hovering over a spreadsheet. It's the cryo-storage, Lena. The main freezer. He said it with such dismissive ease. He probably hears the compressor. The hum is likely on a frequency that bothers him. I pressed. He's singing cry, Aris. Not sound. He's signing help. Aris finally looked up, his eyes impatient. Dr. Hansen, he said, using my formal title, a sign he was growing annoyed. You are anthropomorphizing. You are projecting a narrative onto a random data point. He hears a hum. It feels cold. It's a simple, associative link. It's a freezer. It's full of lab supplies and biological samples. End of story. Now, please, get him back on the linguistic protocol. I have a review board to prepare for. I tried to follow his orders. I really did. I brought Kael his favorite puzzle, a complex series of locks and levers that held a honey-filled treat. He usually attacked it with the focus of a safecracker. That day, he swatted it away. The honey stick rolled to the corner, untouched. His agitation grew. He wasn't just staring at the door, he was pleading with it. He would rock back and forth, a sign of deep distress, letting out low, hooting moans, the sounds he made before we taught him to use his hands. He was regressing, his linguistic brilliance collapsing under the weight of this obsession. And the signs became more specific. He would point at the door, then point at himself, and sign me. Then he would hold his arms out, rocking an invisible baby. Cold. Baby. Cry. Help. My blood turned to ice. A baby? What on earth could he mean? The nights became the worst. The orderlies reported that Kael wasn't sleeping. He would sit at the glass, even in the pitch dark, a small, hunched silhouette, his face turned toward the white door at the end of the hall. He started talking to it. I watched the security footage, my heart in my throat. There, in the grainy, infrared light, I saw Kael signing to the empty corridor. Cold. Help. Hurt. Miri. Miri. A new sign. A name. My hands flew to my mouth. I knew that name. I had seen it in his intake file. Miri. I raced back to the archives, my mind screaming. The file was thin. Kael, rescued from poacher's camp, Gabon. Admitted, July 19th. Accompanied by Miri, sibling. Miri, his sister. Where was she? I stormed into Aris's office the next morning, the file clutched in my hand. Miri. He's signing Miri at the door, Aris. Where is she? This time, Aris couldn't be so dismissive. He stood, his face softening, affecting a look of paternal concern. Lena, sit down. He ran a hand through his hair. This is exactly why I didn't want this brought up. Miri was his sister. They were rescued together. But she was very, very sick. A jungle-born virus that we couldn't treat. She was aggressive, a risk to Kael, a risk to the project. He sighed, the picture of a man burdened by tough decisions. We had to transfer her. She was sent to the European Primate Consortium, a specialty facility in the Netherlands. It was the only way. He looked at me, his eyes full of sincerity. He's grieving, Lena. He's confused. That door is where the transport vehicle picked her up. He's just associating the door with the loss. It's a sad, simple memory. Now, for his own good, you must drop this. It is a closed case. A closed case. The words echoed in my head, but they didn't settle. As a historian of animal behavior, I know that grief is real. Kael's behavior was a classic presentation of trauma. Aris's explanation made perfect, logical, scientific sense. It was clean. It was rational. It explained everything. So why did it feel so profoundly wrong? It was the cognitive dissonance, the warring sensation of a logical explanation fighting a gut-level truth. Kael wasn't just sad. He was terrified. He wasn't signing Miri gone. He was signing Miri help. He wasn't signing about a memory. He was signing about a current event. He was acting as if Miri was in that room, right now, and was cold. But Aris was my boss, a luminary. To doubt him was to doubt the very foundation of the sanctuary. I was trapped between my loyalty to my science and my loyalty to a chimpanzee who was begging me for help. To try and break the obsession, I brought in a new tool, finger paints. It was a simple enrichment activity, meant to distract, to redirect his focus. Kael, who loved the tactile sensation, approached the canvas. I gave him the primary colors. He dipped his fingers in the paint, and his hands began to move, not with the random chaos of a chimp, but with a terrible, focused intent. He painted a white rectangle, the door. Then, he dipped his fingers in blue, his hand shaking. Inside the white door, he painted a small, blue-black lump. A shape. He looked at me, his eyes wide and wet, and signed Miri. Then he pressed his blue-painted hand to the canvas and signed cold. He wasn't just signing. He was drawing a map. He was bearing witness. He was telling me, in the only way he had left, exactly where she was. I took the painting to Aris. I was shaking. Look at this, Aris. This isn't grief. This is an accusation. He's telling me she's in there. In the freezer. Aris's composure finally snapped. He slammed his hand on his desk, his face darkening. Enough. Dr. Hansen, you are compromising this entire project. You are projecting your own sentimentality onto a 70-pound primate. He's an animal, Lena. A brilliant one, yes, but an animal. He's confused. He sees his sick sister. He sees a freezer. He's conflating the two. Your job is to document his language, not psychoanalyze his imaginary trauma. You will cease this line of inquiry. You will destroy that ridiculous painting, and you will get back to your station. Is that clear? His voice was cold, sharp, and final. It was a threat. My job, my career, my access to Kael, it all hung in the balance. I walked out of his office, numb. I felt the cold, hard wall of the institution closing in. Aris was right about one thing. I was emotional, but he was wrong about everything else. As a scientist, I knew the power of Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually the correct one. But as a human, and as Kael's friend, I knew the power of a lie. The simplest explanation wasn't that Kael was a confused animal. The simplest explanation was that Aris Thorne, my esteemed boss, was lying to my face. The dark secret wasn't Kael's trauma, it was Aris's. But why? Why lie so completely? What was he protecting? Was it just the project's reputation? Or was it something far, far worse? I had to know. But I was locked out. The door, the files, the truth, it was all protected by Aris's credentials. I wasn't the only one who had doubts. Ben, one of the senior night shift orderlies, was a quiet man who had worked with primates for 20 years. He loved Kael, and he'd seen the Chimp's nightly vigils. I found him in the break room. Ben, I said, my voice low, you were here when Miri was transferred, weren't you? Ben stared into his coffee cup. He nodded slowly. I was here. What did you see, Ben? Tell me. He sighed. Ben was pale. Lena, I can't. If Aris finds out. Aris is lying. I said, my voice hardening. Kael knows he's lying. And now we know it, too. That chimp is suffering. He is begging us for help, and we are ignoring him. What is our science worth if it's built on that? What are we worth? I let the question hang in the air. Ben wrestled with it, his conscience at war with his pragmatism. Finally, he scribbled 6 digits on a napkin and pushed it across the table. 0-7-1-9-1-8. He wouldn't look at me. The date Miri was transferred. Aris thinks he's a poet. Just be careful, document. Some things are frozen for a reason. He left the room, leaving me alone with the keys to the kingdom, my heart hammering against my ribs. July 19th, 18. The day Kael's world ended. I waited until 2 a.m. The sanctuary was silent, bathed in the sterile, blue-white light of the emergency lamps. The only sound was the distant hum that Kael had obsessed over. My footsteps echoed as I walked down the south wing corridor. With every step, my mind screamed at me to turn back. I was about to commit career suicide. I was breaking protocol, ethics, and the direct order of my superior. But then, I passed Kael's habitat. He was there, a small, dark shadow, his knuckles pressed to the glass. He saw me. He saw where I was going. He didn't sign. He just watched, his eyes a silent, desperate plea. Go. Find her. That look gave me the final, terrible courage I needed. I stood before the white steel door, the keypad glowing faintly. My fingers were shaking so badly I could barely type. 0-7-1-9-1-8. The lock clicked, a sound as loud as a gunshot in the silence. The heavy door hissed open. Ben was pale. Lena, I can't. If Aris finds out. Aris is lying. I said, my voice hardening. Kael knows he's lying. And now we know it, too. That chimp is suffering. He is begging us for help, and we are ignoring him. What is our science worth if it's built on that? What are we worth? I let the question hang in the air. Ben wrestled with it, his conscience at war with his pragmatism. Finally, he scribbled 6 digits on a napkin and pushed it across the table. 0-7-1-9-1-8. He wouldn't look at me. The date Miri was transferred. Aris thinks he's a poet. Just be careful, document. Some things are frozen for a reason. He left the room, leaving me alone with the keys to the kingdom, my heart hammering against my ribs. July 19th, 18. The day Kael's world ended. The room was filled with rows upon rows of tall, stainless steel cryo tanks, humming with liquid nitrogen. The walls were lined with industrial freezers, their glass doors frosted over. I walked down the aisle, my boots crunching on the ice-grated floor. I checked the labels. Primate genome samples. Viral vectors, inactive. Tissue cultures. It was exactly what Aris said, biological samples. I felt a sudden, crushing wave of disappointment, of foolishness. Aris was right. I was a sentimental fool. Kael was just confused. I had destroyed my career for a chimpanzee's confused memory. I turned to leave, my face burning with shame. But as I turned, my hand brushed the frost off the last freezer by the door. It wasn't labeled with a category. It was labeled with a name. The label was simple, typed, and laminated. Specimen, Miri, F. Admitted, July 19, 18. Status, deceased. Pathogen, unknown jungle virus. My heart stopped. I clawed the rest of the frost away. It wasn't a freezer full of supplies. It was a quarantine morgue. And there, lying on a steel shelf, wrapped in a white biohazard bag, was a shape. A small, delicate, impossibly still shape. It was her. Miri. She had never been transferred. She had died. She died here, in this facility, and Aris had lied. He had hidden her body, classified her as a biohazard, and locked her in this icy tomb. Kael hadn't been hearing her cry. He had been feeling her cold. He wasn't confused. He was a witness. He had seen his sister's body being carried through this door, and his brilliant, literal mind knew only one thing. Miri went in. She is cold. She needs help. The sound of the door opening behind me made me scream. It was Aris. He stood there, his face not angry, but broken. He had seen me on the cameras. She died, so fast, he whispered, his voice hoarse, the arrogance stripped away, leaving only the raw, grieving scientist. I rescued them, Lena. I saved them from those poachers. I brought them here. She was supposed to be. She was part of the miracle. He looked at the freezer, his eyes hollow. She died on my watch. A virus I couldn't identify. It was a failure. A catastrophic failure. If the board knew, if the funders knew we'd brought an unknown, incurable pathogen into the facility, they would have shut us down. They would have euthanized Kael as a precaution. He finally looked at me, tears streaming down his face. So I lied. I buried the failure. I locked her away. I told myself it was to protect the project. To protect Kael. But, I just couldn't bear to admit that I had failed her. The dark secret wasn't a monster. It was a man's pride, his fear, and his heartbreaking, human fallibility. We had taught Kael to speak, but we had failed the first test of communication. We had refused to listen. The life lesson was devastating. We crave connection with the animal world, but we only want to hear the parts that make us feel good. We ignore the parts that reveal our own cruelty, our own lies, our own grief. The next day, Aris, Ben, and I, together, wheeled Miri's frozen, contained body out of the freezer. We let Kael see. We opened his habitat, and he walked, for the first time, down the corridor. He stood before the open door, the cold air washing over his face. He looked at the empty shelf. He looked at the container. He looked at Aris, his eyes full of a wisdom that felt 1,000,000 years old. Then he looked at me. He signed Miri. He signed cold. Then he signed sleep. Finally, he put his small hand on my arm, and for the first time in months, he signed play. The door was open. The secret was out, and the healing, for all of us, could finally begin. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, hit the like button to subscribe, like, comment, and don't forget to share this video with your friends if you think they'd love it too. Lest I forget, what did you think about the story? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I love hearing your opinions.